This is something that I get asked about a lot when friends are debating booking a Disney cruise, and particularly if it's their first Disney cruise. Is concierge worth it on Disney Cruise Line? So like with most luxury purchases, that is a personal question, depends on what you value most, and also on the price difference between concierge and non-concierge, which really can vary a lot from sailing to sailing. So the way I like to answer is by just sharing my favorite concierge perks and also how I try to kind of replicate them on non-concierge sailing. So if the perks sound like something that you really can't live without, then concierge may be for you, even if the price difference is pretty high. And if some of these tips that I use to mimic some degree of those concierge experiences sound doable to you, then concierge may not be for you unless the price difference is a little bit less. So let's start with those pros. What have been our favorite things about sailing concierge level on Disney Cruise Line? Number one is that earliest booking window at 130 days prior to sailing, midnight Eastern time. So the way this works is you will get an email from Shoreside Concierge team welcoming you to concierge and inviting you to email them your booking request directly. So this is what our invitation email looked like last time we sailed concierge, which was September of 2023. You'll see inside the email it gives you the specific day and time when your booking window opens, and it actually links you to all the different activities you can book on the ship so you can start exploring them. This email came about 5 days before our sailing. Sometimes it comes a little earlier. I would say usually no later than this. And if you have literally any of the popular requests like Royal Tea or Olaf's Picnic, a specific time for Bippity Boppity, Cabana at Castaway, so on and so forth, you'll want to craft that email in advance and be ready to hit send literally the second that midnight Eastern time hits, because wishes are granted in the order that they're received, and there are plenty of other concierge guests who will also be sending their booking request emails at the same time, hoping to capitalize on those top dollars spent for the early booking perks. When we sailed concierge on the Fantasy, what did my booking email look like? Well, here you go. I'll share it with you. So I prioritized my requests in order. Our top request was a cabana at Castaway Cay, which was really fantastic, and I'll be reviewing that in a future video, but that was our top request and we did get it. Then it was Palo Brunch, then Royal Court Tea, and Bippity Boppity Boutique, which I wanted to be sure were booked on the same day, and so I was able to just mention that in the email. I was also able to ask them to book Royal Gathering, so I didn't have to stay up until midnight anymore, besides this one time to send the email, so that was great. I also made a spa booking. I requested a specific beverage for our stateroom fridge, because in concierge, your stateroom fridge comes fully stocked. I asked them for a specific dining rotation because we wanted to make sure not to miss a particular main dining room on one of the days that we were going to be doing an excursion that went a little bit late, so I could kind of ask for, a particular restaurant to be on a particular day. I booked an excursion for one of the ports. I asked if we could sit at a table where we could talk to Crush in Animator's Palette, and I asked for a full-size lounger on our veranda since we had a one-bedroom with a bump out, so I knew there would be lots of space out there for more than just chairs. We received a prompt reply to our email just acknowledging that it was received, and they said that we'd be able to log into our DCL app, the Navigator app, to view which wishes were granted in about 5 days. So there is a 5-day waiting period where you don't really know if you got what you asked for. So, but that's essentially just gives them time to finish processing all of the concierge guest requests, and then booking then becomes open for Pearl. We were actually very fortunate we got all of those wishes, and honestly, I was shocked. I had literally asked for anything and everything I could possibly think of, and somehow they did it all. And not to say that everyone will have that same experience every single time, but that was just what we experienced. Second thing that we loved about concierge, and relatedly, I mentioned this already, not having to stay up until midnight on separate occasions. So as a concierge guest, you're automatically in the earliest boarding groups, so you don't have to log in at midnight on your check-in day to kind of vie for one of those early port arrival times. And as I mentioned before, you can request Royal Gathering as part of your email to the Shoreside team, so you also don't need to worry about doing that at 30 days out at midnight. So rather than staying up until midnight, not 1, 2, but 3 times, you do it just once. You do it at that 130-day mark to send that email for that early booking window. So I don't know about you guys, but we are an early morning household, so the fewer times I need to stay up until midnight, the better. Number 3, and also related, is that cabana access at Castaway and now at Lookout. So we had tried in vain for many cruises to book a cabana at Castaway, and we finally snagged one when we were sailing Concierge. So again, I'll more thoroughly review the cabana experience in a future video, but particularly if you have really young kids in your group or older folks in your group, I think it can definitely be worth the spend. Would I say that you need a cabana to have a good time at the islands? No, absolutely not. We have done it. We've only had a cabana once and found that particularly once Sydney dropped her afternoon nap, it's really no problem at all to have a wonderful time without one. However, it was a totally luxurious and absolutely fun experience that we are very happy and lucky to have had. So no regrets about that purchase whatsoever, and Concierge made it happen. Number 4, and this only actually applies to 1-bedroom staterooms and above, which are always inherently in Concierge, but the upgraded room service, and namely hot breakfast in the room. So I would say almost every day of our sailings in Concierge in the 1-bedroom, we had hot breakfast delivered to the room. I'm talking full menu of the main dining room is available if you are in a 1-bedroom or above and have a dining table in your room. So bacon, eggs, hash brown, Mickey waffles, you name it, all plopped right into your stateroom. You can order it up until 9 a.m. the morning of. We just call up our concierge host or pop over to the lounge to place our order. It's very easy, it's convenient. Honestly, maybe I should have put that perk higher up on the list because it really was so handy to not have to get halfway ready and kind of navigate cabanas or the main dining room before even having my morning coffee. So 5 stars, highly recommend. Worth the concierge price tag in and of itself? No, but it sticks out as making our mornings slow and pleasant rather than chaotic, as they can sometimes be when your day starts off with a buffet trip. Number 5, and this is speaking more specifically to the larger staterooms, which again are inherently concierge. If you get a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, you are always going to be in concierge. And on longer sailings especially, just having more room to stretch out, hang out, not be stepping on each other's toes is such a wonderful perk. So again, the regular DCL staterooms are quite nice, but again, having 600 plus square feet and 2 full bathrooms, as we did in the 1-bedroom suite, is just unarguably better than 300 square feet and 1 bathroom for the family to share. So again, is it the end of the world? No, and we've only done a 1-bedroom once for a special occasion. It was quite pricey, but the extra space was something I definitely did not hate. We each had our own separate closets, a gigantic bathtub, and again, the full dining table I already mentioned was so nice for eating, snacking, etc. Just really took the comfort level on that particular cruise to a completely different stratosphere. Number 6, this is the concierge team, and you never go to guest services for anything when you're sailing concierge. You go to your concierge team and they have the pixie dust. So want to change your reservation or try to snag something you didn't think of in your early booking email? Just ask them. They are the best of the best, and they will do whatever they can to make your sailing as seamless as possible. Number 7, the Concierge Lounge. It is a quiet oasis where you can go for snacks, drinks. It's also where your concierge team hangs out. They have a happy hour each night that is quite extensive. I believe ours was something like 5 to 9 p.m. So you can go grab a free/included drink there before dinner and also before the nightly stage show in the Walt Disney Theater, rather than purchasing drinks in the main dining room or down at the theater. The lounge is also where you'll meet up before the stage shows for early seating. Essentially, concierge guests are escorted down to the Walt Disney Theater in a little secret elevator that only the concierge have access to. That happens about 10 minutes before the doors open to the general public, and you get to pick your seat before the masses descend, which is really nice. You're given a nice little bucket of complimentary popcorn to munch on while you wait, probably in addition to the drink you just picked up at happy hour. So it saves a little bit of time waiting in line for those quote-unquote good seats in the front and center section of the theater, but it's definitely more fun to pass that time with your new best friends in the concierge lounge versus standing outside the theater getting, sneezed on by toddlers and your toes stepped on by 6-year-old boys running around dressed as pirates on their 3rd glass of Cloud and Blue. Number 8, speaking of the secret elevator, priority tendering and disembarkation. So this is exactly what it sounds like. And again, this involves meeting up in the concierge lounge. If you want to be first off the ship at a tender port, you can be. The details vary port to port. port, so I won't get into that here. This is just something to check in with your concierge host about, and they'll be sure to let you know when and where to be if you want to be off the ship right away at a tender port. Disembarkation is much more consistent across sailings, and that entails being in the concierge lounge, usually by about 8 a.m. Your host will let you know the time for sure on the morning of disembarkation, and you'll take the special concierge elevator that is in the lounge down to deck 3 with your concierge host, and they will personally walk you to the front of the line to disembark the ship. No lines, no waiting. It does involve being up early, but it's glorious, especially if you have a stroller or something that makes the elevator kind of a must-have. Elevators can be really difficult to come by on disembarkation day when everyone's trying to use them at the same time, so this perk is especially valuable in those kind of situations. Number 9, the private character meet and greet. So one of the days of our sailing, there was a private character meet and greet on the concierge sun deck. And this was great because our daughter got to meet Donald Duck in his little sailor outfit with 0 weight and got to spend quite a bit of time with him, actually. Obviously, character meets are abundant on the ships in particular, but it was really cool to have the character come to you. So you have no control over which character it is, and you don't actually know until you get up there, but it was really cool nonetheless, and it does stick out as a really good memory from that sailing. Last but not least, and this is kind of in a way summarizing all of the other top favorites, but number 10 reason for loving concierge was just the extra time and energy it gave us back, because all of these things that I mentioned were made so easy. It just felt like we had more time to explore the ship. The pace felt a little bit slower. I would say overall we did have a more relaxing sailing. Now again, we don't usually sail concierge. We have a fabulous time sailing in a regular stateroom. Veranda stateroom is kind of our usual go-to for Disney Cruise Line, but concierge really did change the feel and the pace and the overall experience of the cruise, so I would put that as a perk. Okay, so those were our favorite things or some perks we observed around concierge. So what happens if you're not sailing concierge? Is everything difficult and stressful? So I've alluded to this, but my short answer is no. You can have an absolutely wonderful cruise without sailing concierge. And here are a few strategies I've developed over a dozen plus cruises to just kind of lightly mimic some of our favorite elements of the concierge experience without that full concierge price tag. Tip number 1 is around that early booking window. So build status through short or last minute cruises if you can. Obviously, concierge has the best booking window at 130 days pre-cruise, but as you build status with DCL, your booking window will widen and widen. And I realize that doing multiple Disney cruises is not in the cards for everyone, so if this tip is not practical for you, I completely get that. But we've been fortunate to be able to do many Disney cruises. It's one of our favorite ways to vacation. It's a lot of times what we'll choose. So when our daughter was very little, my husband and I took several 3-night cruises that were relatively low cost to help not only familiarize ourselves with the ships and the experience, but to build our status so that when our daughter was older, we'd be at a higher Castaway Club level and able to book certain activities more easily. We were Platinum by the time she was 5. And at Platinum, you can get most of what you want except usually a cabana at the Disney Islands. Not always, but we typically don't struggle anymore to get some of our favorite activities. A separate secret is that sailing without any extras at all is also very fun, but I do understand folks who want some of the extras, especially on your first few sailings. That was totally us early on too. Tip number 2, that early boarding group that you get with concierge. There are a couple of ways that you can get at least an earlier boarding group than usual. So one is to leverage Disney Cruise Line transportation, either from Orlando International or a Disney resort or whatever airport. There's a couple of other airports that offer port transportation through Disney. Use that transportation to the port. We typically nowadays we like to do a private transport because I don't like getting up early to catch the Disney bus. It's usually a little faster door to door to go private, but one perk of using the Disney transportation to the port is that you are typically going to default into an early boarding group, no matter what your assigned port arrival time is when you check in. So you're likely to be one of the first on the ship after concierge guests, even if you check in and get a 2 p.m. port arrival time. So that's a good tip for getting an early boarding group. Okay, this may or may not be a great tip, but tip number 3 is around that concierge email, where you can kind of make all of your requests, do all of your bookings and activities and all that all at once. There is not really a great hack for getting around that, but one thing I like to do is I just try to make those 2 to 3 midnight check-in nights kind of fun. I know that may not always be possible, especially if you're on a work or a school schedule that precludes late nights for your kids. But if you're going to stay up until midnight Eastern to book your activities, check in, get your port arrival time, or try to snag the royal gathering, at least try to make it fun. Give yourself maybe some time to snooze in the morning if you can. Again, if this is impossible with your schedule, I totally get that. But if you can swing it, I like to pump myself up by watching my favorite Disney movie. If I luck out and it's a weekend night, I might include my daughter too, just leading up to that check-in time, or watch some fun videos that get me excited for the trip before the clock strikes midnight and I'm there to do my booking. And of course, I'll also try to find a way to get some extra shut-eye either the next morning, or maybe arrange to sneak in a nap the next afternoon after work. My husband and I will typically tag team to figure out how to make those midnight check-ins work, because we know they are typically worth staying up to get the experiences and timelines that we want. Cabanas at the private island. This is tip number 4. So getting a cabana is a huge perk of Concierge, no doubt about it. We have found though, if you know your favorite spot on the island and bring some gear, you're going to have a great time. It only took a few visits to Castaway Cay to figure out the spots on the beach we like the best, and you can hear a little bit more about that in my Castaway Cay video from the last sailing we had on the Treasure. I'll link that here. So we just get off the ship early, usually before 9, depending on when we pull into Castaway or Lookout, and we beeline straight for our favorite spot. And we bring 3 things that mimic our favorite cabana perks, which were the mini fridge, the fan, and the power outlet for charging our phones. So we bring a cooler bag with an ice pack that we bring from home and store in our mini fridge in the room. This actually proves to be useful other times on the cruise too. We bring some water and reusable insulated water bottles, some fruit from the buffet to snack on, and a mini fan if it's a hotter season. And then we also have a portable charger that we use to keep our phones juiced. There really is plenty of shade and umbrellas at Castaway, so getting the shade is not usually a problem. And if we have a cold beverage and a way to charge our phones, we are usually going to have a pretty darn good day. I would add too, we also like feeling that we can move about the island without quote unquote missing out on our difficult to get cabana time. When you put up the big bucks for a cabana, you kind of feel like, I should probably stay in the cabana and enjoy it. Not that we minded having the cabana, obviously, but when you have a free lounger on the beach, you don't really feel any opportunity cost around roaming around and hitting the snorkel lagoon, grabbing a paddleboard or kayak. There is so much to do on the island, and we just feel a little bit, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but we feel less guilty wandering around and doing other stuff if we're just on a lounger on the beach and we haven't paid a bunch of money for the cabana. Tip number 5, hot breakfast in the room. Okay, obviously this cannot be replicated. However, I usually make a practice of booking a stateroom that is 2 decks below the buffet and right by the stairs. So why not right below? Because sometimes there is a skosh of noise from chairs being dragged across the ground on that top deck, and I don't really want to be awakened by the noise of chairs being dragged. Why by the stairs? Because it's super quick and easy access by never depending on an elevator. And lastly, why the buffet? Because in the morning, I like to go up to Cabanas or Marceline Market and grab a quick plate of a few hot breakfast items like hash browns, eggs, maybe a little mini quiche, some Mickey waffles, bacon, sausage, etc., and then buzz them back to the room so everyone can enjoy a few bites on our veranda along with a room service order of coffee, tea, maybe some of the cold continental breakfast items that you can order via room service the night before. Oftentimes we'll end up then making another trip up to Marceline for a more robust breakfast with things that aren't as quick, like the cook-to-order omelets, but it is nice to get started with something right away in the morning and not go up to the buffet ravishingly hungry. Tip number 6, the Concierge Lounge. So one of the best things about the lounge is the always available snacks and coffee. So I make it a habit to always have a little stash of snacks and drinks in our room. The first thing I do when we get on the ship is I make a room service order for some beverages that we might want to stock in our fridge. You can also carry beverages on the ship. I don't really like to drag those around on embarkation day, but that's definitely an option. I also order a hot carafe of coffee and tea every morning from room service, and I make sure to put that it's for 3 or 4 people, even if it's just for me. That way they bring extra cups that I can kind of keep around. And if you keep those carafes closed, the liquid inside will stay hot literally for a full day. So you can have it delivered to your room in the morning. It will still be good for evening tea, or conversely, you can have it delivered at night before bed and you can use it for morning coffee. So just be sure to kind of stash the carafe somewhere during the day, otherwise your stateroom host will clear them out. I typically put it in a cabinet along with an empty cup or two and have a cozy little beverage station in there. Tip number 7, the concierge team. Okay, these people are irreplaceable, but I always remind people not to sleep on guest services and your room attendant. So while the concierge team might spend literally all their waking hours trying to anticipate what you want, and that is wonderful, you can also pick up the phone or go to guest services as a plain Jane sailor and tell them what you want. And I promise you, those folks will usually try pretty hard to make you happy. And I'd include your room host and actually your head server in that group too. You'd be surprised what kind of tips and tricks your head server in particular might have, as they're often very seasoned and very experienced. So just say something like, hey, any tips tomorrow for getting off the ship early? Or any favorite restaurants in XYZ port? Or gosh, any tips on getting that brunch at Palo? It's full. Not that they have magic wands, but it never hurts, and some of these people are sometimes undiscovered gems. And they're also striving for that 5 on the guest experience survey, so literally anything they can do to make your sailing better, they want to do. Tip number 8, those great seats in the Walt Disney Theater, particularly if you have a larger family. If it's important to you to get those front and center seats where you might get bathed in bubbles and confetti or have an encounter with a character from the show in one of those infamous aisle seats, there is no way around just getting comfortable and waiting for this one. But you can have the right expectation, and that is just to expect to wait in line. And then find a way to make the wait enjoyable. So grab a beverage and a book or a movie on your tablet and get in line early. For super popular shows, that probably means an hour before showtime. For Moana on the Treasure, there were people in line well over an hour before the show, which is crazy. A hack that is sometimes available for the more popular shows is that I have been seeing DCL do more matinees, which can sometimes be a little bit less busy. On the flip side though, that could mean doing something sad like leaving Castaway Cay early or leaving a port early to make a 2 p.m. showtime. So you might have to prioritize your time here, but still something to be aware of and to consider. Tip number 9, priority disembarkation. So really the beauty of this was not being stampeded and not waiting in line. And the way that we've achieved this when not sailing concierge is by making sure that we book flights that give us plenty of time to get off the ship, and then pre-booking private transportation from the port. So usually we book our pickup from between 9:15 to 9:30 a.m. and then we never book a flight out of Port Canaveral, for example, before noon. Then we can afford to essentially be basically the last ones off the ship without stressing that we'll be left behind by Disney transportation. Our experience has been that leaving the ship closer to 9 means literally no waiting for elevators, no waiting to walk off the ship, and no waiting in customs. Can I guarantee this will be everybody's experience? Of course not, but that has been ours. And incidentally, I do plan to do another video on this, but if your only flight options out of Orlando, for example, are something like a 9 a.m. flight or a 5 p.m. flight, do not do the 9 a.m. flight. Do the 5 p.m. I know it's a long time to wait, but just grab a day room at the Hyatt. So again, topic for another day, but don't create a stressful morning by booking a flight that is too early. Okay, my last and final tip, tip number 10, that concierge welcome lunch. So this actually wasn't in my top favorite things about concierge because I could actually kind of take it or leave it. However, there is a welcome lunch for concierge guests only that is in one of the main dining rooms on each ship on embarkation day. This is a sit-down lunch with some alcoholic beverages included where your concierge team will circulate and just see if you have any questions, give you the rundown on the afternoon. They'll even help you register for the kids club so you don't have to wait in line for that later in the day. And my trick around this is just to make sure that you know there is actually always a sit-down main dining room open for lunch on embarkation day. And if you wait until day 2 of the cruise to register your kid for the kids club, you actually won't wait nearly as long for that registration piece. So those were kind of 2 of the benefits of the concierge lunch that we feel like are actually pretty easy to achieve in just a regular sailing. Okay, so that rounds out my 10 favorite things about sailing concierge, and then 10 tips for just making your sailing really go more smoothly. So as an added bonus to think about, what's the cost and value comparison here potentially? Well, if you add up the cost of all the little tips and tricks I mentioned, you're talking about $60 in gear for Castaway, some beverages to stock your fridge on that first day, let's say $50 or $60 depending on what you like, some cocktails or mocktails and snacks for your waits outside the theater are going to run, $20 per show, so maybe $80, assuming you only do this for the 2 big shows. We aren't big drinkers, so the happy hour in the concierge lounge didn't really save us all that much money, but that could be a factor for some people. DCL transportation to the port is going to run about $180 for a family of 4. That's roughly the same as a private car for that return trip from the port to the airport, actually. So that's almost a wash at that point. That all adds up to about $400 just as a ballpark figure. There could be other costs, like maybe a later flight is more expensive, or maybe the alcohol piece is a factor for you. You'll kind of have to do your own math, but outside of those hard costs, you also have to consider the additional costs of the time and energy investments. So waiting in line, staying up late, getting up early. So again, if you're willing to do those things, clearly you can see that you can really upgrade your overall experience on your cruise a little bit with some or all of these strategies for a fraction of the cost of concierge, which can vary, but is often almost double the cost of a veranda stateroom and sometimes even more. So at the end of the day, I hope this was helpful to you. I know this can be a really tough decision, especially if you've never sailed before or you think you may sail only once with DCL. I always tell people if cost is no issue, why not sail concierge? But if cost is a consideration, like it is for most of us, and you think you'll probably sail again, I might sail in a regular stateroom first, just so you can really appreciate the concierge experience and understand what you might want to ask for in that booking window email. If you think you may be one and done with DCL though, and there are specific things you want to do on the ship or at some of the destinations, I would seriously consider splurging for concierge just to be sure you get as many of those things as possible as a first-time cruiser. No matter what though, we have had wonderful experiences sailing with DCL, both concierge and non-concierge. So these are kind of good, better, best type of decisions. Hopefully these are all things to consider that can help you decide whether concierge is worth it for you and your family. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by giving it a like, and if this topic prompted some questions for you, feel free to leave those in the comments. And if you'd like to see more of these Disney FAQ videos in the future, or just some of our actual trip vlogs, please subscribe to the channel so you can follow us along in our adventures. Until next time, goodbye!